Welcome to another edition and another episode of Two Babies in a Business, a podcast where we've done all sorts of things over the years, but this is season 3, and I'm super excited to start another season, maybe take back the Two Babies in a Business brand a little bit. Fear not, Peter will show his lovely face here and there. But today I'm joined by Emily, who's not only a friend and a colleague, but our lovely producer of our podcast. And we're going to talk about season 3.
We sure are. Thanks for having me back.
Of course, you're my favorite.
Me?
Yeah, season 3. I feel like if you obviously listen to what is probably the last episode of season 2, you have Peter and I kind of talking through our visions for the next year. We did a lot of reflection on our individual whys, but also the whys of CIPR. And I think this Two Babies in a Business podcast has obviously gone through a lot of its own whys. Season 1, the why was about brand awareness and becoming known as the marketing and PR agency that we are. And I'm very grateful for everyone who's listened because we did that. So check mark there. It was a great, if you're a marketer listening, it was a great SEO play. Got us lots of content, got us lots of video, got us lots of great organic social posts. But it kind of, we did what we needed to do. It sat there for a bit. And I was really surprised when people were like, hey, when are you going to do that podcast again? Or waiting for the next episode. So Peter and I did season 2, obviously together, where we talked a lot about our lives and each other and our business. We talked a little bit about some marketing and PR. But really, I think that season 2 journey was about us figuring it out. I think if you listen from season 1 or from episode 1 to the end, really we're on a journey of being entrepreneurs and business owners and thinking things through. And so, it ended with Peter chasing this cool tourism AI network dream. And for me going, hey, why did I start this brand? What am I passionate about? What kind of sets my heart on fire in terms of this community? And really it's having these great discussions about being a, mompreneur, kind of living the life and trying to be balanced while doing it, trying to understand how other amazing women that I get to talk to every day are making it work and setting a stage. And I've been kind of joking that maybe now this is my why has become setting aside an hour to be able to catch up with my friends and talk to them on a podcast, since we have no other time other than that. But yeah, that's been the journey of Two Babies in a Business. So here we are, season 3, and really we're going to talk about all the things: finding balance as a working mom, dealing with mom guilt, time management, all the things that we should all be talking about that we often don't.
Yeah, I love that. Excuse me. I'm always looking up to you, Christina, which I mean is kind of comes from a funny place almost, because I'm not a mom and I wouldn't describe myself as traditionally entrepreneurial necessarily, but I still think there's a lot that we can learn from you, just, even in the way that you kind of adopt these different roles and the way you move through the world, which is, I've gotten to know you very well over the last year and it's been a lot of fun, but I really like the way that you and Peter do life. Like it's cool. You guys do a good job, I think. So hopefully our listeners feel the same way and learn a thing or two on the road. So I do have a bit of a question for you, kind of related to those 2 different roles I've kind of talked about. You guys did a great episode. It was actually your season opener for season 2, hats, and how you wear these different hats as parents, business owners, husband and wife. There's probably a million more in between. Hopefully you're friends with each other, but I grew up with a single mom, and I feel like I can relate to you so much, Christina, because you actually remind me of my mom in a lot of ways. In many ways, you're completely different, but I think that's why I have that little soft spot for you. You're both 8s in the Enneagram, and you're both very different 8s, but you're both very similar. And one way that I would say I see a bit of a difference between the 2 of you is you're both very strong intention, strong-headed. You both go after what you want. And so I guess I'm wondering how you hold the, the values and the needs of, Peter as your partner, Peter as your business partner, the kids. How do you kind of balance all of those different things together in terms of, being a mom, being an entrepreneur?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I think that it's I mean, this is the type of question that I want to unpack, because I think that, you know, if I'm spinning it on a public relations side, I think that we're all putting out some really great perceptions into the world. I'm obviously not posting on an Instagram story when like Peter and I have just had a big blow up about, whatever nonsense we're kind of working through that day. I think though it took me a few years to just realize the cliche saying of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I obviously reflected on the moms before me, whether it be, the own moms within my family tree or moms that were friends that, started before me. And you just start looking around in terms of that, like, who is happy? And I feel like happy is a relative term, but like who seems to not only have it all together, but like are just out there enjoying life too. And I feel like then I started to unpack, okay, what is at their core? And, I think a lot of the women in the generation before me, so a lot of like anxiety in that generation. I mean, millennials have a lot of anxiety too, but there's just a lot of worry and, I feel like the feeling of you don't have a community, you have to have it figured out by yourself. You have to kind of have that perception and that, oh, we're perfect. We got it all going on. That's fine. And then you start to unpack it more and it's like, okay, those are the people that are pouring from an empty cup.
Right.
The ones who haven't taken time for themselves, or the ones that haven't, moved forward. I mean, I look at my own mom, who I love dearly, but, I was her whole, only children. We know how it is, but it's like, yeah, it's her thing for a long time. And when I moved out and got married and became my own thing, I think there was a lot for her to unpack and figure out what is her thing and what is the things that move her. And I know through conversations with her, it took her a while to figure out. And I don't want that for myself. I want to know who I am aside from the role of mom. And so I think balancing all things aside, like the balance between the kids and me and whatever, to me, it's just that communication. Hey, I need a minute, or hey, I need to finish this thing during soccer, or even cues from the other side. Okay, mom, put it down. It's time to play hockey in the backyard, or, no business talk in the bedroom. That's like been a key, even if I'm laying in bed and I'm like, dear God, I just want to ask him about that meeting that I didn't get to. No, you shut your eyes and you wait till tomorrow. I think it's those things. I think, similar to the hats episode that you talked about, I think it's just remembering what hat you're wearing when, and just owning it. I feel like even yesterday I was like, I have so much work I should be doing and need to do. And, I woke up early. Peter was on a hike with his guy friends and had the intention of working. And I lazed around for a bit, and that's okay. And I feel like the Christina of even probably a year or 18 months ago would have not thought that was okay, but I needed it and it was great. And today I'm better for it. So I didn't really answer your question because I don't have an answer, but that is how I try.
I think you still answered it in a way, and I'm sure we'll keep answering the question as we go, right? I think to your point, it's really important to have your own thing, right? Whatever that is to you. And that's, you should say that about anybody. I think we all kind of have seen somebody be in a toxic relationship where, whether it's their partner, whether it's a really close friend of theirs, but that becomes their entire world. And then things like that, unfortunately, sometimes come to an end. And then what do they have to say for it? So I guess the lesson there is always have something that's just for you. Have something. I want to return to a point you kind of made as well about only seeing good things happen, or it's only seeing the good things that happen is what I should say, because we all have, bad days and that sort of thing. I hope that this podcast is an opportunity to move past the snapshot of like, oh, I'm the best mom ever and blah, 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 because you very well might be. I'm not trying to diss any of the moms out there. I get it. You guys are pretty awesome. But everybody has bad days. And I'm not saying you need to go out there and broadcast your bad day, because that's not necessarily helpful either, but hopefully we can have a nuanced conversation during this season about, here's how you get past those bad days. Here's how you find your thing that is just yours, so that you can still have that thing outside of, your business, your kids, your partner, whatever. It's just for you.
Yeah. One of the questions that I'm going to be asking a lot of is like, do you think that the media is finally getting it right in terms of the portrayal of women? Because there's, like in a year of the Barbie movie and, Taylor Swift's Eras tour and her becoming a billionaire. And, we have a lot of kind of these it's a great time to be a woman. Or is it?
Oh.
Right. So I want to ask that question, because I think that, again, in this age of a lot of mom content creators who are trying to show that other side of momhood, and, in the age of TikTok, and I want to know, do we think we're getting it right? Or are we still feeling pressured to live up to a certain standard and grind a certain amount of time? Is it just who we are? Is that kind of maybe what you end up signing up for even just a portion of your life, because kids are little for so long? But yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. And I think even last season, Peter and I, hopefully to listeners, shared a lot of our stories from a good and bad perspective. Hey, this is what it's like being a business owner, and like, this is the shitty part, but like, here's the great parts too. And so I want to keep having that really open dialogue, and, sharing the fun stuff on Instagram stories, but not being afraid to be like, yeah, before that picture, everyone had a nervous breakdown.
Right. Oh man. And I think that nuance is important. I think it's something that, I personally believe we're unfortunately losing, both in the media, on social media, in the conversations that we're having, unfortunately. So I think just being able to bring some of that nuance back in and hopefully make that a little bit more mainstream would be really nice. I am going to do the cliche thing and ask about the decision-making process behind starting a family. I know that's one question that is always a tricky one to ask, because I think, especially since we both come from the background of politics, it's always, when are you going to have a baby? When are you're an elected official and you're a woman, but you don't have any kids. What's that about? But I'm feeling a little bit more confident about asking you this question because you've already done all of that. But what I kind of want to tap into here is so CIPR is 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, 13, 2010. So yeah, 13.
So
Well, almost going on 14. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would say you had, for half of that time, you have had your children. So
Sure.
what did that decision-making process look like? Was it like, okay, we're in a place now with our lives, with the business, where we can bring in a couple new additions? Or was it kind of just like, whatever, we'll see how it goes? And then you did it. Because I mean, I think both have value, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Peter and my story is an interesting one from a kid's perspective. I mean, Peter is older than me. He was ready to have kids right away, right? I feel like, his clock was ticking. I was not. I was building a career at Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers in a time where, the kind of anti-energy movement was rife with whatever on the internet. And they brought me in as the social media specialist, and I grew a career there to a campaigns manager and really had a good time. But I don't think there's anyone would be surprised by the fact that that was a very stressful job. very high stress, lots of eyeballs on you, whether it was government or industry, and industry being like the industry giants. My role reported directly into the CEOs of 8 major oil sands companies. So, cool.
Yeah.
No new pipelines today, guys. Like, right. So it was a high stress piece. And I've told this story many times. My boss, who was an incredible champion of mine, moved on from the organization, got a new boss. It was clear we weren't going to be a match, and not everyone is. So that's fine. And moved on to do my thing. I mean, when I first went out full time, CIPR was always side of my desk. I was doing contract work. I didn't think I was going to just stay contracting. I interviewed actually there were 2 positions, director level roles with 2 really, really cool organizations. And I really wanted either of the jobs. I knew I could do them well. And it was the first time I ever felt discriminated against, which was a very interesting thing, especially as a female in the energy industry. I'm told that is a very controversial place to be. I had incredible male and female mentors. I didn't have to face that. But as a, on the cusp of 30, newly married, I was, a couple years in, but viewed as newly married. There were definitely some not overt questions, but some subtle questions around momhood and my dreams and whatever. And no, they didn't cross any lines, but I knew. And in both situations, men of my same age got the positions and I didn't. I know both of them. Obviously, I've been watched, and they did bang up jobs and were great candidates. So that was interesting. And, then I went, okay, well, we're going knees head first, knees deep into CIPR, and I can do this. And literally a few months later, I was pregnant.
Wow.
We were trying. It's not like we weren't, but also we had been in this place of so much stress that I feel like it was like I made these great career decisions for myself. There wasn't stress entangled in it anymore. And, all of a sudden biology was like, oh, this is a non-threatening environment. Welcome to the world. And then we had them. I mean, I went through a lot of stress in terms of, oh shit, like I can't go and tell someone I have a mat leave coming.
Right.
That's not a thing anymore. I'm doing this business. We want both incomes. We did math. We wanted, I didn't have to be as aggressive in terms of growth, but we wanted that secondary income. And I didn't end up telling clients till I was a good 5 months along. Video calls are wonderful for that. I ended up kind of bringing Peter to a few of my key client meetings just to show he wasn't full-time with CIPR yet, but he was helping, and brought him along to kind of try to give some reassurance to those that didn't. But that was another kind of pivotal learning point for me before I became a mom. Was I had clients leave. I had clients say, not only are you going to be too busy, but that you should take time off with your children. And so we'll be wrapping up our engagement with you. I don't necessarily think they were being malicious, but they were dictating to me that now it is my turn to go and do my thing. And then I'm super grateful for the clients like Tourism Kamloops, who, female led, lots of female leaders, were super stoked that I was going to bring some new little kids into the world. And, I was bringing my babies on business trips to them. And that was, some of the kids, first dozen trips they ever did was to Kamloops to check it out. So, again, it was something that we had to make work. We were expecting it, but I don't think we were expecting the timing of it. And then all of a sudden, you got twins wrapped up into that scenario. So times it by 2, but it's been a good journey. And I don't think CIPR would be what it is without that journey. And I don't think I would be who I am, because like I said, I learned a lot of interesting lessons that I would not have been exposed to had I not been at CIPR, from hey, I'm pregnant, or hey, I'm going to try to do this thing.
Yeah, I think there's something very poetic about CIPR almost facilitating the boys, and then the boys almost facilitating the direction of CIPR. I think that's actually really sweet. And it's nice to see that, again, those kind of two roles that are completely and entirely different from each other kind of feed into each other and make new chair. I do want to come back briefly to that note about clients telling you that you need to take time off, only because I think that sort of sentiment, and no shade to those clients, like you said, I'm sure they didn't mean anything by it, but I think that's the problem with that question of, oh, well, when are you having kids? It's like, you're making decisions for a person that they may not even want, they may not even need. It's everybody's journey is different. And, I don't know if I could have twin boys and still run a business. I don't know that for myself, but that's also a choice for me to make. It's a choice that you made, and you've done it obviously very successfully. Kudos to you. And so just a note to people, I think in general out there, maybe don't make decisions for anyone, but particularly for women. We hear it all the time. It's getting old. Go watch Barbie. Thank you so much.
It's true though. And what I will say is that most of the clients that walked away were women, which is a whole other interesting dynamic in terms of, where I think and hope that we're at now is women, that, hey, we're here to pump each other up. And again, I think we have incredible examples right now in pop culture of women doing that for each other. But it's not natural. For some reason, I was talking to actually Peter and the boys about this, and it's like, maybe there's this like lioness, protect the pride, protect my territory, protect my man or partner, whatever. Like, I don't know what there is, but it doesn't seem to be the most natural thing for us to all lay down our defenses and be, hey, we're here to support each other. But I also think that like things are changing. And so, again, I want to be able to help facilitate that conversation. And, if I'm talking to someone who's facing whatever they're facing, hopefully it resonates with somebody and they can, do exactly what you said, do the thing. And yeah,
I think as long as we're all making choices that are good for us, they don't have to be good for everybody, because that's a loaded question right there. But, just making sure you're not hurting anybody in the process and you're doing what's right for you, I think that's the right choice right there.
Totally. And your kids are watching. Like, it's one thing now, having 7-year-olds, it's like they know, right? They also can see and understand emotions of like, ooh, mom just got an email and she is not, and what is that like? And, there's this whole added piece of someone's watching, and I would much rather have what seems to be a hard conversation with the kids about, this person said some disrespectful things, or this person made me feel a way because of this, and this is me standing up for myself, or this is me going, ooh, maybe they're having a bad day, let's give them 24 hours and see if that tone changes. And there's lots of lessons that a mom can borrow from those pieces, as opposed to glazing over. And I think this is an overgeneralization, but I think I come from a generation where like, I had no idea what was going on with my parents ever. I didn't know, and good on me. I feel like I probably had maybe less stress as a kid because of it, but I also feel like maybe I had different stress or more stress, or as I look later on, feeling a little out of the loop with stuff. So for me, it's like, I don't want my kids to have to guess how mom is feeling or how mom's doing. It's like, oh yeah, mom got an email and didn't really like that, so how would you deal with it? There's interesting situations where you can put it back on them and have that conversation. And now all of a sudden you are working through a work issue collaboratively and being a mom at the same time.
There you go. That's those roles coming together. I think, and I'm pretty sure I've said this on the podcast before, but I think just modeling for your children, the behavior that you would want them to emulate is huge. I feel like I look at the way that my mom raised me all the time, and I go, man, there's no way I would know how to do X, Y, Z without just having been her little mini me for however long, 18 years. And now I look back and I'm so grateful. Like there's so much gratitude there. I'll be like walking down the street and see somebody doing something weird. And I'm like, thanks, mom. Like, I don't know what's happening there. And I mean, just like nothing crazy, but like, grocery shopping. It's like, well, I know how to do that because I was there all the time. Right. Like, and I know not everyone, for better or for worse, has some of those skills that we consider not that big of a deal, but knowing how to respond to a client or even just a person in your life who is maybe not at their best.
Right.
That's huge, right? And it's simple, but it's big. So
yeah, no, it's true. I'm curious because you obviously our circles had crossed before we worked together. I feel like you've seen me on many highs and lows over, 2023. From the perception that you knew of me, because I, obviously had an online presence and all that jazz when we were in our political circles. But is what I throw out there in your terms accurate, or do I sugarcoat? Or I'm curious, what's your perception now that you know the true essence of Christina?
I don't know if I would ever use the word sugarcoat in terms of describing you. I just don't think that's in your nature. I mean that in a good way though. Like it's probably because I come from someone who also doesn't sugarcoat. Like she probably doesn't do, like, I'm speaking about my mom. She doesn't know. She will tell you the truth to a fault, which I mean is nice. Jason Copping, one of my former bosses, described it very well. My mom does not suffer fools gladly. But anyway, we're talking about you, not my mom. So I would say, I think what I like about the tone that you strike in pretty much every conversation that you have is you are very much able to deliver tough love without, being harsh. You don't sugarcoat. You do not sugarcoat. But you are still gentle and kind, and you do it with the best intention in terms of wanting to make sure that whoever you're speaking with, whether it's a client, a teammate, a friend, the internet, the world, you're doing it with the intention that the other person will see it and get better. It's never you made a mistake, pray on it for a while, and then think about what you've done. It's like you made a mistake, you did. It's okay. Let's grow and get better together. And then I think your online presence is very much like, hey, how can you make today a little bit better?
Yeah, that's so funny. I read many moons ago a child rearing book about like consequence and punishment and all the things, and one of them was like, when you send a child to your room and tell them to go think about what they've done, they're not going to go think about what they've done. They're thinking about how pissed off they are at you because now they're sitting in their room by themselves. They're not learning any sort of lesson. They're not learning anything. So it's like, again, to me, it's like, if you want someone to learn something, like, teach it to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a hard conversation. I feel like hard conversations are never something that I strive to do. But I think you just come to a place where it's like you can't shy away from them, and hopefully you're appreciated for them.
It's funny that you say that. I was actually going to say I've always appreciated. We haven't had too many of them, thankfully, but in the first few months that I worked at CIPR, I won't lie, I made a couple of mistakes, and you said, hey, we can't do that. We gotta get better here. That's not how we're going to keep doing this. And I was like, no, you're right. That's not how we're going to keep doing this, but I'm better for it. Right. And they weren't always necessarily easy conversations. They weren't necessarily always messages I love to receive, but by the end of the conversation, it was like, okay, no, you're right. I goofed. Here's how I'm going to get better. It's all good. We're both on the same page. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. I think you can tell a lot about a person. So wearing my like employer hat, like you can tell a lot about a person in the first few months of a job because everyone fucks up. Like everyone does. Like I do, I screw up things all the time, right? Like everyone does. It's human nature. It's the name of the game. And especially at an agency, we are flying fast. There are many priorities and there's lots going on. And for me, not that I wait for the first mistake, but as a new employee or someone coming in, like something is going to happen, something is going to go sideways. And the way everyone can deal with it and come back together really solidifies for me, like your people and
Yeah.
your team and people who get you and people who don't. And I think that, like, to me too, it's that grace under fire. And I mean, you've always been exceptional at going, reflecting, dealing with it, having great solutions to move forward. I think even when you have had those whoopsie moments, you always come to the table with, okay, here's some ways we could tackle this, right? You've thought it through. And then, there's the opposite too, where people come in, and I feel like, I'm getting to be seasoned as an employer now, where it's like, you can tell pretty quick, like, no, this isn't our value system. And I think too, as a mom and a maybe mentor for other business owners, it's like, how are you dealing with your first mistakes?
Right.
Because you're going to make them. So give yourself some grace, make a plan, move forward. And when you screw up again, just go back and figure it out.
So on that note of you're going to screw up, a friend of mine, he has 2 kids. He's doing the single parent thing on his own as well. And we were having a chat one day, and he was like, I just don't know if I'm doing enough. I don't know, if I'm serving these kids the best I can, da, da, da. I mean, it's really easy to be hard on yourself when you're on the inside looking out, but when you're on the outside looking in, it's like, no. He was doing a great job, loves his kids so much. You could tell it wasn't like oh no, you're not trying. So essentially what I said to him was, I'm going to stop you right there, because you're going to screw up your kids one way or another. Like, it's just going to happen. I feel like Peter would agree. I know he's on his whole mommy and daddy issues kick with Life by Design. It is what it is, right? Do your best, as long as you are treating your kids right, you're giving them their needs, you're killing it. You're amazing. You get the gold star from me. Everybody's different. You're gonna mess up your kids. Sorry, one way or another. That's just the way that I see it. It's not a bad thing. Like, it's not. They're gonna have challenges that they have to work through that you didn't have to. You have challenges that you had to work through that they won't have to. And that's kind of just the human condition.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think every human has to face this moment of, am I like who am I, right? Am I being what my parents wanted me to be, or am I not? And I feel like that's the ground for your mommy and daddy issues too. But I think as women, we all go through it. I mean, I've had a few conversations already in terms of this podcast, and there definitely has been a few times where we've talked about the fact with some of the guests that are going to be on, I was doing something because that was the path that I thought my parents wanted me to be on, or, I'd always been told this is good, and I had to self-reflect and figure it out. And yeah, I think as a mom, our like moment, and I think that what I would say to you or a woman who's not a mom yet is like, have this personal come to Jesus before kids. Because it took me to having kids, and then I dealt with my mommy issues. Right. Then I had this big reflection of who am I? What am I? How am I fulfilling my, like, it was after kids, because you go through this, oh my God, now I'm this. Whereas I could have easily had that conversation 5 years before kids, and probably would have saved myself a lot of headaches in my 20s in terms of who I was trying to prove I was and all those things. But to me, that's the big thing. But even this weekend, I don't know what the kids were doing. Oh, they got mad at Peter for something, and we were watching them play, and they were arguing, and Peter and I looked at each other and said, well, today, daddy issues. They're gonna have daddy issues. So you gotta like keep it in jest too, right? And we both laughed, and it's like, you have no idea what moment they're gonna pinpoint and go, that time at soccer when you didn't tie my shoe fast enough.
But that's what I mean, right? There's going to be a moment, a handful of moments, 100 moments where your kids are going to, be my age, 25, and go, that to this day is still bothering me. But, you know, there's going to be moments too where they do the flip side. Like I remember it was the summertime. I was going to change into some shorts because I was wearing long pants. It was way too hot. I'm running back out the door, like can't get back to the neighborhood friends fast enough. My mom's like, wait. I'm like, what's going on, girl? She's like, do you guys want some popsicles? And that has lived in my head rent free as just like this indication that my mom loves me so much. So like, don't get me wrong, my parents both messed me up in different ways. Love them both. But there are those moments too where it's like, okay, no, your parents are still like wonderful, amazing people in most cases. Sorry to the people who don't have great parents, because that happens too. But just remember that it's going to be very, I mean, hopefully 70, 30, 80, 20, but there's going to be those moments of not so good, but there's going to be those amazing moments that your kids hang on to too, and they're going to remember forever.
There's your next two babies in a business merch. You got your like dad chores, but do you guys want a popsicle?
Yeah, right.
Because it's true. Like, what are those moments? Like, I feel like those are the moments of like, hey, do you guys want a popsicle? Is like, have those moments in your life, whether it's for yourself, like, I'd like a popsicle, like,
right.
What is it? Or to your kids or to your colleagues, or more, do you guys want a popsicle moments?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Nice. Well, thank you for chatting and gabbing and laying the foundation for season 3. I'm super excited about it. I'm excited to have these conversations with women. You may or may not have noticed, we've got a Two Babies in a Business dedicated kind of space now online, where we're going to share these stories and other stories. You can sign up for our newsletter so you can be notified of new episodes and things like that. But I'm looking forward to, we have a great community, building a little bit bigger of a community and showing that, you know, we're all just trying to find those popsicle moments.
Love that.
Nice. All right. Well, I look forward to talking to you many times through this season.
You too.
Thanks for joining me, Christina Pilarski, for another fantastic episode of Two Babies in a Business. I hope that you'll follow along with me on my journey as a mom on Instagram, Two Babies in a Business. And I hope that you'll sign up for our newsletter. You can find the link in the show notes or on my Instagram. And finally, if you're a mom with a story to share, I want to hear from you. Please reach out to me, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you.